Hi, I'm Jason Gore for ThatShelf.com, and we're here to look at a couple new releases from Led Zeppelin. So Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti, one of one of the great albums by one of the great bands of all time. Amusingly or bemusingly, I've never actually owned this record, and I've talked about this, I think, before, but I'll just mention it. For me, Zeppelin was always this band that was sort of, I was never really tied to it as an album band, interestingly. It was the box set that came out, that's one where the cornfield and the you actually have the shadow on top of it. One of the things I absolutely adored is that they released that and then they released a sort of compendium CD set, which gave you all the rest of it. And so that I had the 4 CD set and then this other stuff. And I have everything that Zeppelin did in terms of actually being recorded. And I loved that. So I really came sort of as a greatest hits level, which meant that the albums were never the sequencing that I was actually familiar with. It's one of the few sort of quote-unquote classic rock bands that actually came. I had Who's Greatest Hits, but then I relatively quickly learned about, Listen to Tommy in its entirety, Who's Next in its entirety, Definitely Quadrophenia in its entirety, or the Beatles. Obviously grew up with the Red and the Blue albums, and actually Stars on 45, that's a whole nother conversation. But I very quickly, when the CDs came out in the mid-80s, 86, 87, when the CDs started coming out, that's the Beatles really became my first album band. Before that, I had been buying singles, the K-Tel collection and stuff like that. I'm like, why would you need a whole record? Which is interesting because we've very much come back to that, the way that people listen on streaming, the way that people actually bought 99-cent songs, etc. But it really was for me going back to that album-oriented period that really conditioned me to want the whole record. But for Zeppelin, it took me many years to actually sort of listen to them as contiguous wholes, rather than sort of picking and choosing the individual tracks. Zeppelin 4 obviously is, so epic. 2 remains something near and dear to my heart. I have a Ludwig version that I've shown on this channel before. I have a Zeppelin 1, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, but I don't have the other ones. I mean, the Codas, the Presences, etc. But one that I really wanted to have and just never got around to getting a really good version of is Physical Graffiti. So this is the 50th anniversary deluxe edition on 3 LPs, 180 gram. So the LP 1 and 2 is the original album. This will be the Jimmy Page sort of redux. He did a complete remaster to his taste a couple years ago. Then LP3 will be studio outtakes plus a replica poster, and again, produced by Jimmy Page, unsurprising. And so, yeah, the LP 1 and 2, Custard Pie Rover, In My Time of Dying, House of the Holy, Trampled Underfoot, Kashmir, and then LP 2, In the Light, Bronnie R, I can never say that, you know what I mean. Down by the Seaside, 10 Years Gone, Night Flight, the Wontons, the Wanton Song, Boogie with Stu, Black Country Woman, and Sick Again. And then the companion audio, we have Brendan Coke, which is a Trampled Underfoot sort of rough mix, Sick Again, an earlier version, In My Time of Dying, and then side 2, House of the Holy, the rough mix with overdubs, Everybody Makes It Through, In the Light, which is an early version, / In Transit. Boogie with Stu, the Sunset Sound mix, which is interesting because these were guys that very much were going back and forth between England and America and some stuff in France. And then Driving Through Kashmir, which is a rough orchestra mix, which will be interesting to hear. This reissue 2025. So let us crack this open and see how it actually opens up and go from there. It looks like it's one of these things that actually just opens on the top. So I'm going to I'm going to use this. I can't find my knife, so I'm just going to use this. And sort of crack this open on the top and try to keep the shrink as carefully as I can. That's a terrible way to do. I should pause the video and do it properly, but I'm just being lazy. Just open it up as carefully as possible, and then that allows me, just ruin the plastic a little bit, but it's fine, it's going to be in the sleeve. And then as these open up, we have this stuff to pull out. So because it's a die cut, you see that with the windows, as the whole thing comes out, this is where the stuff will actually pop out. So let's get these records out. It's a little bit complicated. 1, 2, and 3, and then a bunch of other material that we will go through. And then this is the card that has the various windows to actually spell out Physical Graffiti in the various ways that you want it to, which actually allows using the die cut to actually play. So I'll place this back in here. Put that aside. And I am greeted with something that doesn't make me super, super happy given the sort of expense and presence of this thing, is that we have lovely paper sleeves. These obviously can slide in and you get all the faces on the various windows. That is excellent. But the fact of the matter is that the records themselves are sort of tucked in here. So I'm going to try to pull this out without me doing too much additional nonsense. They actually look like they're in pretty good shape, but nonetheless, I would have loved these to be sort of packaged separately and these to be sort of set in poly sleeves, but always get what you want. I think that's another band. This happens to be side 3 and side 4. We have the Swan Song logo on here. Icarus flying too high. Other than the hair, which probably came from me, and some spittle, which also probably came from me, the record itself looks pretty decent. I'm just going to put this on the rack here for eventual cleaning on the degritter. We then have very similar, another series of the sort of window partitions that come through. I assume this is very similar again. This happens to be side 1. So black vinyl, looks nice. Pressing looks pretty decent. Throw that there. And then the third one, again, similar, the ability to decide what you actually want sort of poking out through the window panes on the record itself. And again, same Swan Song logo, same black vinyl. Actually, totally fine. So throw those there. Yeah, and then we have the promised poster. I have so many of these, and none of them are hanging up, but, you know, they're nonetheless fun. So here we go. A physical graffiti poster celebrating this record's release. If I had enough walls, this stuff would be hung up, but, you know, with the Warner Brothers logo on the bottom, interesting as part of, obviously, the Atlantic family. So that is our look at a quick look at the opening of Physical Graffiti. But this, for many people, might actually be one of the more interesting things, but also some of the more frustrating. This is the companion live EP. It's 4 live recordings on vinyl for the first time, remastered and produced by Jimmy Page. And again, we are getting 2 tracks from Earl's Court and 2 tracks from Nebworth. So the Earl's Court is the 75 show, and 79 is the Nebworth show. Now, people have been wanting actual, like, these have been bootlegged all to hell, but people have been wanting full and complete releases of all these. So this is a taste of, I think, what's to come. Inevitably, I bet there's going to be a box set on all the Zeppelin live stuff. But, you know, we get this little taste as a further celebration. And just to show how the EP is treated, not better, but slightly, for me, more pleasingly, polyline paper sleeve. Happens to be a black one. Again, has our friend Icarus on there from the Swan Song. And the vinyl already weirdly looks much cleaner and clearer than the ones that have been shoved into the paper sleeve. So this EP, which includes In My Time of Dying, Trampled Underfoot, Sick Again, and Cashmere, all 4 live versions. This has a sort of, you know, another taste of what's actually taking place during this era of Zeppelin, fully at the peak of their powers, still churning out absolute masterpieces and giving audiences a sort of more thorough presentation of what they had actually become at that point, just before things started to slip away. Their drummer obviously having some issues, before things really started to deteriorate. This is sort of peak Zeppelin in terms of live stuff. Absolutely extraordinary. So yeah, there's our look at our 2 sort of physical releases of Physical Graffiti and Led Zeppelin. Let me know what you think about this particular release. I'd love to hear in the comments. Please subscribe, follow us on social media. Again, leave comments below. I'm just going over for that shelf. Please go to our website and see all the awesome stuff that we're doing there. That would mean a lot. I will see you next video. All the best. Take care.